it nice to finally get on the road and actually start talking games and playing?
Yeah, it is. It's been a long time. We had a camp, obviously, early January, and to pick the players back up and try to pick up where we left off is always a bit complicated. So Sunday will be a little bit of the unknown, but we hopefully we'll recognise a few things about how we trying to play and recognise some good performances from some players.
Obviously playing against a team like Fiji, obviously the side, the last time they played was 2023 in that match at the World Cup. What's kind of been the approach and mood here, particularly now obviously because a lot of those players play against the Drua regularly and so know them a little bit more? What's kind of the approach for this particular match?
Yeah, it's a good question. They do have a number of players who are across from overseas, so it is different. Guys like Tuisova and Ravovo, Mata, they can make a bit of a difference very quickly. And so I think it's just been more about us, just trying to get a little bit of rhythm for ourselves. We feel like we've got a very short runway into this game and then into the games that follow. We've got a massive test schedule this year with 15 test matches. So it is all about trying to get ourselves organised to hit the ground running.
Joe, you've obviously got a number of key players unavailable for this match. Bobby and Jake and Will. What are the nature of their injuries? How close were they to making it? What's the time frame for them being back?
Yeah, they're doing great. They Will and Bobby, they trained well, albeit not with the side, but they had some good speeds and their movement's good. Jake trained with the side today, so he's very close to being able to. He if it was the last game of the season and we were desperate to have Jake, but we've got Tate and Nick, so we're not desperate around 9 anyway. So Jake will work his way back through there, but I'd be very confident all three of those guys will be ready to train at the start of the week for that first lead into the British and Irish Lions first test. But for this week, it was probably a week too soon.
On the captaincy, is this for this test only, or is this for the whole series? Harry going to be skipper?
It's for this test at the moment. We've got a really good, strong leadership group, and they share the responsibility of leadership. So I think from that perspective, Harry's become a familiar leader for us, and I think it was comfortable. As I said before, we're trying to pick up where we left off effectively, and where we left off, Harry was leading the team, and it allows other guys just to do their own role and not get too much distracted by any leadership role. Captain it's a label and it's a responsibility, and there are actions associated with it, but those actions are also something we expect to be demonstrated by the broader leadership group.
Can I squeeze one more in before everyone else? So, the selection, how much of your selection thought that went into this was a recognition of the players and what they did and the improvement they made last year, and how much was it based on form from what you've seen in Super Rugby this year?
Yeah, it's always a balance, and I think one of the things is that it's very much a collective selection. I certainly don't tell Mike Cron who should be first up in the front row. It's a dark place. I've never been there myself and have no desire to be there. So I think it's very collective in how we build that, and a lot of it is based on confidence. We saw players develop last year, but certainly Super Rugby is the current form of players, and so that definitely is factored in. Even as recently as some of the forced players against the British and Irish Lions coming back into the squad, as much as those two that didn't go back and were with us the whole time.
Joe, this is your only game to prepare before the first test, and notwithstanding the injuries that we've already gone through and the touch wood possibility of others before now and then, are we to assume that this is as close to the starting side for the first test as you are going to pick?
Yeah, we never make assumptions, Atco, so we're just going to take it 1 week at a time. there are obviously some combinations that you'll see. Some of them are familiar. I think it was mentioned that Nick Frost and Jeremy Williams, they were involved, I think, starting 5 times last year, so they built a little bit of a combination there. At the same time, we've got Lucan. He got that game for Queensland Reds during the week. That was his first game back for quite some time, and Lucan featured heavily for us. Will Skelton has featured for us, and Darcy Swain is probably on current form, was outstanding in the Super Rugby. So there's that formula, and we've got Josh Cannon with us at the moment. So there is a bit of flexibility around that's lock, for example, and same. One of the things with Dave Parecki coming back in is we wanted to mix it up a little bit. He scrummed with Angus Bell and Taniela Tupou a fair bit during the season, but to mix it up and get him familiar again with James Slipper and Alan Alalatua, those sort of combinations, I know it's almost like speed dating, trying to get these guys together as quick as we can to try to build some combinations. Front rowers wouldn't like that reference, would they? Slippery ground.
As Mike Cron then noticed a bit of a bromance between Parecki and Alan Alatoa. You said that he makes those calls on the front row selection. Is he seeing something like speed dating analogy? Yeah, no.
Again, they're collective, as I say. He'll volunteer what his thoughts are around the scrummaging, and Jeff around the lifting and the movement and the line out, and Laurie Fisher around their movement and ability to be involved in the defensive system. So it's very much collective, but I think there's a number of really positive combinations, and I think it's easy for us to slot Billy Pollard in amongst those 2 props because he played with them most of the season. Matt Fessler was the hooker that started most often, but he hadn't played. He's a little bit like Lucan Salakailoto in that he got that run out against the Lions on Wednesday evening. So he's just a little bit further advanced now to come into the picture in future test matches. But for this one right here, right now, we felt we wanted to have a team mixed on what they earned last year and then also current form of Super Rugby.
Last one on Parecki, Mel, if you don't mind. He hasn't played since the 2023 Rugby World Cup, where he was actually captain, I think, in the last game. Real horror year with injuries last year. He's a pretty measured fellow, but what was his reaction when he learned that he was going to be starting this test, given that last year he probably questioned how he was going to get back to it?
Yeah. It's funny you say that, it was measured. He's very much around, he's process driven. It will be just another game for him, but it's also, he knows, a real opportunity for him. So I think he's worked really hard this week, as have all the players, to try to make the most of that short runway that we've got and build some of those combinations as quickly as we can. So Dave is not someone who, and I like that about him, he is measured. So when the pressure comes on, he's unlikely to get panicked. He's going to remain measured and process focused, and that's some of the experience that he brings. He's the most experienced of the hookers that we have in the squad at the moment.
Fraser McWright said that this week was the first he sort of revisited that 2023 game where they lost to Fiji. Obviously, you've looked at it as well. What were your sort of takeaways from it? I mean, I know it's different. There's 9 players or whatever backing up, but different coach, obviously. But yeah, what have you seen in the Wallabies since then?
Yeah, I think that it was a rocky period, and I'd like to think that it's not so rocky now. But you survive week to week, and as a coach, you're on the periphery of player thoughts and systems that are in place. Once the players take the field, you're very much a spectator like anyone else, with a little bit of influence in that you can maybe get a message on or manipulate something through a change in a substitution. So, to be honest, I haven't spoken to the players too much about it at all. I think we've just tried to make it mostly about us. we certainly respect the Fijians, and as I mentioned, some of those ones coming back from Europe and some of the ones that were in the Drua on this side of the world were incredibly impressive athletes, and we know that if we are inaccurate, that they will punish us, and that their set piece has really improved, which gives them a platform now to invite themselves into the game without us helping them do that.
They,
just back on Harry Wilson, obviously he's a Northern New South Wales boy, gonna die. I suppose, other than consistency, him as captain, what is it you like about him for that leadership role?
Yeah, it's probably, he's pretty measured as well. Not only that, you can just see in Harry and sense it. He's almost got this passion to play for his country that is contagious. And so when your leader is demonstrating that passion, and I think he's probably vocalised it a couple of times, just what it means for him to play for Australia. And he's he's a sports fan. He loves Australian cricket. He loves Australian winning. Really, it doesn't matter what it is. But I'd love to see him as an Australian winning, because that's what the team need. And I don't necessarily mean winning games, just winning the moments, that when he's involved in the line out, or he's in the defensive line, or he's carrying, he can be as effective as possible in those moments. So I just love his passion around representing his country, and as I said, I think it's contagious.
Another one who this test means probably a lot for is Nick White, playing at home, him being probably at the tail end of his international career, I suppose. How special has this week, and will this test on Sunday be to someone like him?
Yeah, don't mention that to Whitey, that he might be. He thinks he's on the upswing. No, he's a champion bloke, obviously, and he's been down. He's been out coaching twice this week already, and he was down working with the Wildfire Nines last night. He gives to the game, Whitey, and he gives to the team, and it's one of the things that we really enjoy with Nick contributing to the team. He's a smart and experienced player, which when you add our test caps up and between him and a couple of others like Slips, outside of those guys who have got that experience, there are some pretty inexperienced guys in our team, and just for them to have that calm reassurance, and sometimes that cutting comment is what he's capable of delivering. They know it comes from a real care about the team and the performance. So, I think it is pretty special for Whitey. He's caught up with a few locals during this week, and obviously, as I said, he's shared his time with some of the local players to give a bit back to the community that he came from.
Can I ask a question about him too? What about on-field performance? What's he still doing now at 35 that ensures he's still sticking his hand up to be in contention for a starting spot and squad spot against a team like the Lions?
Well, again, for this week it's all about Fiji, but he was the first try scorer on tour against the Lions, so that's a good start, burrowing under and scoring. But I thought his kick, run, pass decision making is usually spot on. His ability to organise the players around him is usually spot on. And that's a really good starting place for a 9. If he can be the conduit for others to express or demonstrate their abilities, then I think he's doing a good job, and he commits pretty well to that.
So, Langy Gleeson was in, and he was out of the squad, and is obviously now back in and starting. What's changed with his situation, and what has he done to impress you to earn his place back in the side?
Yeah, he was never out of the playing squad. He was just out of a camp that we had in January. Having said that, Jeff and I met with him, spent a good amount of time with him, looked back over his season and the clips that we had and the data that we had. and had a really good discussion with Lange. And you know, my hope with Lange is that his sojourn en France, it doesn't last too long, and he comes back, and you know, he hasn't signed for too long, so I'm hopeful that he'll be back, and he'll be doing what he was doing during Super Rugby this year. If you look at him, I think he was one of the form back rowers in the Australian game, and you know, it's on that current form as I described, and he kind of doubles up. He did a good job for us last year, and he's doubled up by being in form at raw, not just at the back end, right throughout the Super Rugby.
And I know you said you wouldn't tell, sorry, I know you said you wouldn't tell Connie about his front row, but what's the thinking strategically with starting with Slips ahead of Belly, who's obviously been such a destructive ball runner for so long? You get such workload out of him. What's the thinking there?
Yeah, again, one of it was just mixing the front row up a little bit. So if Dave was going to start, and the thing is that Angus knows how we play. He's been in the squad, you know, throughout the back end. He missed the early stages coming back from injury, but then played the TRC in the spring tour. Missed the Irish test, unfortunately, through illness. But the thing with Dave Parecki is we wanted to get him in, get him started, and we wanted to kind of give him an experience that wasn't just with Angus, that was in a front row, and at the same time Billy Pollard hasn't spent that much time with Angus, and so it was really just around trying to develop and familiarise players as best we could. We thought that Dave would best benefit from starting, and a big part of that is if you're the starting player, you get more time running in the team, particularly today in the last training before the test match. So Dave got plenty of time in the team today. Billy knows the role that he can play, and so does Belly. So those two guys coming on, we're pretty excited about what they can bring off the bench. So it's a balance. It's certainly not permanent, but again, we'll go 1 week at a time and just see how we go.
I know 1 week at a time, but so your focus is Fiji, but you've obviously watched the Lions games. Like, what do you see about the task sort of ahead of you?
Yeah, they've been pretty impressive. I think 2 games where the first 20 minutes they haven't really started that well, but even saying they haven't started that well, they've actually missed a few opportunities. I think the more cohesion they develop, the more they'll be dangerous in finishing some of those opportunities. I felt that they created a few, particularly in that first game, that they didn't take, and then the second game, and I think they're really competing for spots with their strength and depth. They've got incredible strength and depth, so I think as we see them play the Waratahs and then the Reds and then the AUNZ team, I think they'll develop those combinations, and that will be what we'll be tracking beyond this Fiji game. Just how they're tracking, as those combinations, and as we get a bit of an insight into what we think might be their test combinations, because at the moment I think they're probably just trying to manage minutes and also trial a few things as they work their way through the first 4 games.
Last one, please, guys.
Can I just ask one, please?
Yeah, sure.
So, James Slipper, his experience, how important is that going to be for this, not just this game, but the series against the Lions? And also, what does Taniela Tupou have to do if he wants to get back in the team?
Yeah, again, first of all, with Slips, I think his experience is just this calmness. Slips is very much just about getting his role right, and that's the best way to serve the team. And so servicing the team through his scrum efforts and his set-piece efforts at line-out, the timing, the movement, the lift, those things I think he just demonstrates that if you can get your role right, it ripples through the team and other guys get brought into the game. And then with Taniela, I'd love to see him tomorrow night just be really, really strong at set piece. I think the set piece is somewhere that can be a real strength for him. And I felt in the Super Rugby, toward the end, he had some pretty good performances, particularly in the scrum. And then just making sure he's contributing around the field as best he can. The last game he played for us was against Ireland. He made a 50 metre dash up the field at one stage. He scrummed. He was very strong in the scrum, and so we haven't forgotten that. And I'm hoping, and I've spoken to Nella, that he hasn't forgotten it either. He knows he's capable, and we just want to see him demonstrate that capability tomorrow night.